It's interesting. It never really was a question for me. I think it was just a very natural desire that I had. So it wasn't really forced on me, or I wasn't asked to do it, or even asked myself. It's just something I needed to do. But on a personal level, I think it's very fulfilling for me to do it. It causes me to interact in the world in a very specific way. So for me, I hope to achieve something that is personal for me, but in the long term, for people to interact in the world and see the world through someone else's eyes. So if they see it through my eyes, or I can help to have them see the world differently, I think to change people's perception of the world would be a great achievement, and I hope to accomplish it in a small way. Yeah, I love working in oil paint, but I love to draw. So for me, just to simplify it is to work with a pencil or charcoal. So I love working with those two mediums the most. I enjoy working with watercolor and also printmaking, but for me, oil painting seems like the most natural kinship for my character, in the sense that I can move it around through fluid. I can also sculpt it, and it just feels like a very natural medium for me. I think the medium has a lot to do with the intent of the artist. So for me, I would look at a scene, if it's a landscape or a still life or a figure, and I would ask myself, what would the best medium to use for that specific subject? So for me, paint is a very specific choice, and how I would use the paint is also changes from subject to subject. So if there is a very quiet ocean scene, I would use a thinner approach. If it's more of a fluid, rugged terrain like a river, I would use a rougher, thicker approach with the paint. So I hope I answered that question. The studio work is quite painstaking, and it's almost the opposite of what happens when I'm working outdoors. Where I'm outdoors, I'm just purely responding and reacting to what's happening with the light on the subject. But in the studio, I would spend a lot of time planning and doing a lot of sketches and studies to work towards a larger piece. So the studio pieces are usually larger, so I feel it's really important to do a lot of planning, because you're going to spend maybe 12 months, even up to 2 years working on a large piece, and you have to be really enthusiastic and plan it out so that the longevity of the process is going to keep you excited about the project. So the studio work it's hard work. It's really long hours. I love landscape. I also like working with still life and the figure, but for me, I think my most favorite is landscape, because I think the thing I love the most is to be in the landscape. But the other subject matters, in the studio work, I find narrative work is really interesting, where I use, just like this painting behind me, where I use objects that create a narrative or a surrealist, thought-provoking feeling. So I love landscape, but sometimes landscape doesn't say certain things, so that's when I use other objects to work with. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Sometimes they're elusive. Sometimes I would do a painting and it would be a certain light on an object, and the name would just come to me, like Um, there's a painting I did called Incoming Storm. It was just before it started to rain, so it was a very appropriate name to use for that painting. And then other paintings are, the title comes while I'm painting. Um, this one in particular is called The Banality of Relaxation. So it was a moment where I was very relaxed. I was on holiday. I was seeing the light shifting on the chair. So it was a very natural title to come towards. Other titles, they come to me in dreams, which is really cool when that happens. Like I would have a dream, I would just hear a voice saying a title, saying a few sentences, and that would inspire me to sometimes even make a painting or title a painting accordingly to that. So when that happens, it's very... I think for me, each painting I do, I put a lot of love and care into it. And sometimes I fight with it, and sometimes it comes effortlessly, and it's easy. Some are hard to do. So for me, all my paintings are, I don't put a painting up on a wall if it doesn't make me happy, right? So for me, all the ones I've done in this show, I feel really good about. I feel the one behind me, the one with the Banality of Relaxation, is probably the one I feel the most closest to, simply because it was a labor of love. It was very process orientated, but also achieving the sense of plastic with paint, or creating a sense of a dryness of a wall just with paint was a bit of a breakthrough for me, because in this painting I realized that the actual physicality of paint can create a different world, and to me it was quite a mind-opening experience. Every time you pick up a brush, you learn something new, and it's I think it's that inquiring and exquisite a nature that makes for, I think all artists learn new things every time they pick up a piece of paper or a brush, and that, I think, is what keeps us going. I think if you didn't learn anything every painting you did, then you'd stop painting, because you know everything. So I think eclectic and numerous styles. I think a lot of that's been a criticism in the commercial industry for me, because I do so many different types of styles and applications of paint, and it can be detrimental for a commercial artist, because a lot of the galleries want you to paint a certain way and keep painting it that way, and I just feel I can't do that, because the world is too complex to stay in one road, one zone. So for me, I do a lot of different styles depending on the subject. So for me, it has to be the subject that dictates how I paint it. So with this one, I needed to paint it smooth for the light. For other paintings, there's maybe more brush stroke showing. There's maybe more thickening of paint. So yeah, each painting tells me how to paint it. I don't really make a decision. Strangely enough, I don't really, when I paint, I don't listen to music, because I find it distracting. So music can be an influencer for people. For me, I find just being quiet is a way for me that influences my paintings. So being in nature influences, spending time with people you love and have interesting conversations. Those are things that influence me. I guess if you're just open to everything, whether it's politics or history, all those things they accumulate. So it's very hard question, because it's not a specific thing that influences. I think I just love looking at art, spending time talking about art, so it becomes part of your nervous system, I guess. Well, the other influences is I do teach painting and drawing, and I think it's been really rewarding to be able to continue the lineage of my training. So that has actually forced me to get out of my shell. I'm a very quiet, private person. So when I have had to teach or talk about art, it's forced me to actually explain the process of my own process of being an artist to myself and to others. So that has influenced the way I look at my own painting. But I think a lot of the influences that outside of painting is either the teaching helps, but also just to try and expose yourself to as many different experiences and that you can, whether it's traveling or just being more open to doing different things in your routine, changing up your routine. But for me, on a personal level, being from a different country and immigrating was also, that has influenced my desire to be an artist, because this is how I can communicate. This is a form of communication, trying to explain even something as well, it's not simple, but something as momentous as relocation. So relocation is an important part of my process. Years ago, I got an email out of the blue. It was a man bought one of my paintings, a small painting. It was called Incoming Storm. It was, mentioned it before. It was I was painting outdoors, and a big dark cloud came and it started to rain. And I luckily finished the painting. And this person purchased the painting at a gallery, and I got an email saying that he was a journalist and he was working in Libya at the time during the Civil War, and he took the painting with him. And he said that every morning he wakes up and he has his body and he has that painting because of the war that was going on. There was a lot of bombing and stuff going on. So for me, I think that was like, whoa, that is amazing that someone can find so much peace and like comfort from someone else's creation. So for me, that was like okay, this is cool, because it does mean that I'm doing something right. Because sometimes most artists think, oh, I'm not doing it right, or why am I doing this? So when you have that momentous moment, I think it reminds you that you just keep doing this. You're meant to do it. When I'm painting, I don't think about the price. Like, for me, I am just working on the subject at hand and working with my materials. But the pricing is an issue, because a lot of times people say your prices are too high. And I base my prices on two things. So it would be my selling history as being an artist from many years and showing in various countries and galleries. So there is a standard that the industry has made for me. And so it's not even my choice. The industry has chosen that is the price. So for me, when I think about my pricing, when I'm working on a large painting, that some paintings, the one painting took me almost 2 years to do, and that was pretty focused on that one painting. And I did smaller things in between. So when I look at it, I can't just ask minimum wage, right? So that's something that I do. I think it's important for artists to set a higher bar with pricing, because it supports not only themselves, but it helps other artists. So if all artists are working together with actually raising the price, I think it's good for all the artists, because it should be acknowledged as an important contribution to society and to the world. So sometimes I'm thinking, oh, I should lower the prices, so I need to make a sale. But at the same token, theres a balance and there's a negotiation. And I think that artists in general should feel proud to ask a certain price. It's one of a kind, you know. it's a scary world for me, and like it's. I think it's very confusing for most artists. It's confusing to me. I think it's confusing to the art world. The people in power are also just playing things as it goes. I think it's in flux all the time. It doesn't really have a model. It's a product. So like art is a product, and I think the art industry is a product that keeps on changing, and it changes with what's new, what's trendy, what looks good, what doesn't look good. So I find it very confusing, and I'd love for someone to explain it to me. But I do. I realize you need it. An artist needs the art industry. It's just it's a tough one.